Good evening, East Alabama, and welcome into the locker room on this Monday afternoon. My name's Namath Pitts. I want to remind you to hit that like and follow button on our East Alabama Now page so that you don't miss the locker room. We have 2 more weeks of the show being 3 days a week, and then we will go back to 5 days a week. Also, we have our East Alabama Now news tonight at 6:30 p.m. Mike Stedham and Katie Edwards have your local news. John Holder has your local weather, and I will bring you your local sports. Today, we have highlights from the Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics Jamboree games that took place this past weekend at Mumford High School. This is the first weekend of 2 weekends. There will be more Jamboree games for everybody that didn't play this past Saturday, and those games will be at Anniston. Now, we had 8 total programs that were in action, 24 teams if you count the sophomores, juniors, and seniors together. So really 12 games that took place Saturday at Mumford. Now, each team stepped on the scale for weigh-ins before the competition actually started. We do have highlights. Although they just had weigh-ins, we don't have official rosters yet, so I can't, break these plays down for you like I typically do and will during the regular season, but we are going to throw some music under the highlights and show you highlights of each team. The first 2 teams that took the field Saturday was Oxford and Mumford. Mumford was the host school of the Jamboree. They played Oxford. I do apologize to the sophomores and juniors of Oxford and Mumford. We did not get to Mumford in time to catch them, but we did get a little bit of highlights from the Oxford seniors versus the Mumford seniors. And by the way, these highlights are presented by the Joey Cruz team with Keller Williams Realty Group. So before I show you guys some highlights, I want to take a moment to let my good friend Chad Barnett tell you more about the Joey Cruz team.
When finding your next home, you need someone who knows the area inside and out. That's why you need to call us. Hey everybody, Chad Barnett here with the Joey Cruz team at Keller Williams Realty Group. When it's time to move, you need someone who will advertise your home, show prospective buyers, negotiate the purchase contract, arrange financing, all of the ins and outs of buying and selling. But the best thing about the Joey Cruz team is we have individual specialized agents working for you. If we come list your home, that listing agent will be on your side of the table all the time. The buyer will be shown by another agent. This keeps your interest at the utmost respect on our side. We will always be on your side of the table. We can take care of everything you need from start to close, like staging, home repairs, minor improvements, whatever's going to make your house look the best when it's time to go on the market. That is what we do. Our job here at the Joey Cruz team is pretty simple. Make you the most money in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of hassle. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, call the Joey Cruz team today and let us put your real estate needs in cruise control.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you to the Joey Cruz team for being our highlight sponsors. With that being said, here are the highlights of Oxford and Mumford from the Northeast Alabama Youth Athletic Jamboree game this past Saturday. It was a great competition between 2 teams that, although they're in different classifications, have had a bit of a rivalry in the history. That is Oxford and Mumford. Another 2 teams, if you go deep into tradition, you would find Walter, Welborn, and Alexandria, 2 programs that are traditionally strong, 2 programs that really come behind football. That's the sport that both of these schools really eat, sleep, and breathe. I got to say, baseball at Alexandria under Coach Zach Welch, Coach Shaw had great success. Baseball is definitely giving football a run for its money at Alexandria right now, but you go back to Coach Ginn's days, you go back, of course, Welborn, you go all the way back. Gosh, Coach Jeff Smith is just one piece of guys that played for Coach Battles, now what Coach Smith is doing as the head coach. But both programs start in their youth. It starts down in your youth field, and Walter Welborn's had David Wormy Haynes leading their oldest group for 55 years now. Alexandria has been traditionally strong, won the senior division a year ago. So what I did is combine the sophomores, juniors, and senior highlights of Alexandria and Welborn, and we're going to show you all three divisions at one. And I got to tell you, one thing that impressed me about these two teams is Alexandria has the talent that they typically have, but what really surprised me about Welborn was, well, I'd say surprising, but losing some pieces, guys moving up. Very good defensive teams on really all three teams that played. I thought Welborn's juniors got the win 7-6. They played great defense. Jonathan Screws does a great job. Wormy's team, you're going to see a couple different defensive highlights of them. And then the sophomore groups, both teams had some explosive offensive plays. But with that being said, I'm going to take a moment and let you see the highlights of Alexandria and Welborn. So here are the highlights that are presented by the Joey Cruz team with Keller Williams Realty Group. You saw the highlights. Welborn Alexandria went back and forth head-to-head. It was a great jamboree. Alexandria, of course, plays in the large division. Welborn in the small division. Last year, Alexandria won the senior division championship. They got runner-up in the junior division championship game. And so it was really a good test for both of those programs. Well, I think Welborn's going to be better, especially their juniors team. Sophomores team looked good. Of course, Wormy's team's numbers are up. So I think those two going head-to-head this past weekend was a really good kind of measuring stick for both of these programs to see where they're at. And now they get a break for a couple weeks. The first week of official games is September 7th. So both of these teams have some time to kind of look back and reflect on what happened this weekend and see how that'll help them moving forward. All right, after Oxford and Mumford, now Welborn and Alexandria closed the day. Oxford and Mumford started the day. After Oxford and Mumford, it was White Plains and Lincoln that went head-to-head. When we come back, we're going to show you highlights of the Lincoln and White Plains sophomores. We're going to show you highlights of the juniors, and we're going to show you highlights of the seniors. So don't go away. We'll be right back as we continue on The Locker Room.
We live in a world that moves quickly, and while we are able to connect faster than ever through technology, maybe you've noticed that real connection is hard to come by. Parker Memorial Baptist Church offers you a place to connect, a place to learn more about Jesus and the difference He can make in your life, a place to build relationships with like-minded believers, or maybe discover what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. A place to use the gifts and talents God has given you. A place where we love God and we love you. Parker Memorial Baptist Church, 1205 Quintard Avenue, Anniston. Visit our website for details.
We are back on The Locker Room on this Monday afternoon. My name's Namath Pitts. We are showing you highlights from the Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics Jamboree games that took place this past weekend. Before, in our last segment, you saw Oxford and Mumford that went head-to-head. You saw Welborn and Alexandria. This segment, we're going to talk about the Lincoln Golden Bears and the White Plains Wildcats. Now, one thing that has stood out to me about White Plains, especially since Coach Jennings took over, is their numbers have really went up in the youth program. And again, you talk about your youth program feeds into your middle school, which feeds into your varsity. But White Plains did a youth camp this year, the high school team did, and they said the numbers were larger than they had probably ever been before. So the numbers are up for White Plains, and they certainly had some talent on the field this past weekend. Now, for Coach Matt Zedeker leading the varsity program at Lincoln, their youth program has always had really good talent that is fed up into the varsity level. And so the first two teams from Lincoln and White Plains that took the field were the sophomores. So we're going to take a moment. Here is Lincoln sophomores versus White Plains sophomores, and the highlights are presented by the Joey Cruz team. Okay, you saw the sophomores in action. The next group that took the field after the sophomores was the juniors group. White Plains juniors went head-to-head with Lincoln juniors. And again, both of these teams stepped on the scale. They had to weigh in. They had to certify these players before. You have, of course, weight limits on how much you can weigh in order to be a skilled player versus where you have to play on the line. And then they take pictures of each player to make sure if a situation comes up later in the year, they can go back and reflect on the weigh-in to see if that's actually the player. So Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics, Chris and Darren do a great job of leading the Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics and making sure that, hey, everything is ran honestly with integrity each week. And so we showed you the highlights of the Lincoln and White Plains sophomores. Let's now take a look at the junior group. Here's White Plains Juniors versus Lincoln Juniors. The final group to take the field between White Plains and Lincoln was the seniors group. Of course, the seniors group is the oldest group. It's typically 5th and 6th graders that are going to, of course, be moving up into the junior high level. And like you saw with the sophomores, they're allowed to have a coach on the field. But once you get to the juniors and the seniors group, there's no coaches on the field. They're all on the sideline. But Lincoln and White Plains both had some really good talent that I saw in their seniors group team. And so with that being said, the Joey Cruz team highlights of White Plains seniors and Lincoln seniors, here they are. That's going to conclude our highlights of Lincoln and White Plains, two great teams that went head-to-head this past weekend at Mumford. And both of those teams, of course, again, will hit the field on September 7th. That'll be the first weekend of games for the regular season for Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics. Lincoln plays in the big school division. I believe White Plains will be playing the small school division. So I believe most of these teams, I'm assuming Mumford's moving down from large to small this year. So Mumford was a small division, Oxford a large. White Plains a small, Lincoln a large, and then, of course, Jacksonville is a large, Sachs is a small, and Alexandria is a large, Welborn's a small. So each team, I guess, trying to make sure two teams that wouldn't maybe see each other in a conference game during season. That's kind of, I think, why they split those up, but I'm not sure exactly. But again, Chris and Darren do a great job of leading Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics. All right, the last two teams that hit the field, well, they weren't the Alexandria and Welborn were the last, but the last bit of highlights we're going to show you are the Jacksonville Golden Eagles and the Sachs Wildcats. Sachs sophomores team got runner-up last year in the small division. Jacksonville juniors won the championship last year in their division. Some of that talent from the juniors team went up to the seniors team. One big noticeable thing for Sachs, Dalton Rozelle, my brother, leading both the juniors and seniors team this year. So we have highlights of Jacksonville and Sachs when we come back. So we'll be right back as we continue on the Locker Room.
For over 60 years, Oxford Lumber has been servicing our area, and our customer service has always been our main focus. Our customer service is what sets us apart from anyone else. From the moment you enter, our highly trained staff will treat you like family.
To enthusiastically provide total customer satisfaction within a positive and self-fulfilling employee relations environment. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or at oxfordlumber.com.
Since 1993, WM Grocery has been a major part of our local community. WM offers the very best in fresh produce and an outstanding meat department. WM also has many local products not found anywhere else and fresh sushi every day. If you need an event catered, come see Mrs. K at any WM store. Curbside pickup is also available for your online grocery orders. Be sure to download the WM app for all the deals of the week and shopper rewards. Go check them out today at any of their locations.
We take pride in our community and appreciate your business.
For metal buildings in Alabama and the Southeast, Waldrop Manufacturing is your one-stop source. A Waldrop metal building provides the coverage and protection your investments need. They specialize in carports, RV covers, portable buildings, and storage buildings. Stop paying rent for storage. With Waldrop's price per foot, you can actually save money by buying straight from the manufacturer. Waldrop buildings are guaranteed because Waldrop manufactures buildings with U.S. steel right here in Calhoun County. Waldrop Manufacturing, serving the entire Southeast. Give them a call today.
We are back on the Locker Room on this Monday afternoon. My name's Namath Pitts. Again, I remind you guys when we first started the show off today, but I want to remind you one more time, please hit that like and follow button on our East Alabama Now page. Don't forget to share our show tonight so that other people out there can catch the highlights from the Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics Jamboree games. We are the only person that loves to bring, of course, coverage to these young kids. They deserve it. They work just as hard as the varsity programs. Parents invest just as much time and money into making sure their kids get to participate in sports. And all the coaches. Now, we didn't show you any action of the cheerleaders from this past weekend, but let me tell you something about the cheerleaders from Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics. They work just as hard, too. And one thing I loved about Jacksonville last year was they had majorettes and a dance program. So as the season goes on, you'll get to see highlights of the cheerleaders as well. We cover the cheer competition that happens during the season. And again, so we want to make sure that we don't forget about the cheerleaders, make sure we give them some love as well. Jacksonville and Sachs went head-to-head this past Saturday in the Jamboree game. It started with the sophomore group, and last year it was a great year for the Sachs sophomores. This was a team that did make the championship game in the small division. They did end up falling in the championship game, but they were runner-up, and they went head-to-head with Jacksonville. We have the highlights of Jacksonville and Sachs sophomores, and the highlights are presented by the Joey Cruz team with Keller Williams Realty Group. The next group that took the field was the juniors. Now, we talked about how Sac sophomores made the championship game. Well, the Jacksonville juniors made the championship game a year ago. Not only did they make the championship game, they won the championship. And I believe they had a ridiculous stat, like they didn't give up more than 24 points all year long. Their defense was top-notch. Their offense was just as good. And they got, I think, one of the best running backs out of any team. And number 27, of course, his name escaped my mind right now when I have the official roster. Of course, we're going to talk more about him, but he's got to be one of the best sized running backs that I've seen in the league that plays for Jacksonville. He was really good for him last year. He's not going to miss a beat. He's going to be just as good for him this year. And so, but then also a shout out to Sacs. My brother coaches at Sacs. He does a great job with them. I want to give a shout out to my little nephew that plays for them. So again, I just wanted to give them a shout out and talk about them. So we do have highlights of Jacksonville juniors and Sacs juniors. So here are the highlights presented by the Joey Cruz team. The final jamboree between these two teams was the senior group, which again, Sac seniors coached by the same coach as the juniors, my brother Dalton. But for Jacksonville seniors, they have some players moving up from the junior group to the senior team. And the first guy that stood out to me, well, I got to tell you what, Barrett Edwards. He had a great game for Jacksonville. He threw a touchdown pass. He scored a 2-point conversion, so I do want to give a shout out to him. His mom, by the way, Katie Edwards, she's on our East Alabama Now News tonight at 6:30 p.m., so make sure you don't miss that. But want to give a little shout out to Barrett. He had a great game for Jacksonville and the seniors team. And so let's go ahead and show you Barrett's touchdown and some other highlights as well. Here's Jacksonville seniors versus the Sac seniors from the Jamboree game. And again, these highlights are presented by the Joey Cruz team. Again, thank you to Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics for allowing East Alabama Now to be there. Thank you to Tyler Schmidt for going and getting the highlights for us this past weekend at Mumford. That concludes all of our highlights from the Jamboree games this past weekend. I want to give a shout out to all the parents that have supported us, and we look forward to continue our relationship with Northeast Alabama Youth Athletics and bringing you guys highlights each and every week this season. We are truly going to do it unlike anyone else. And again, shout out to my brother Dalton. Shout out to my little nephews. They did great this weekend. Hey, my buddy Wiley Finley didn't get to play for Alexandria this past weekend because he was sick, if I'm not mistaken. But I want to give a shout out to him and shout out to his dad, Dale, for calling me Friday night so we could just chat it up about the Jamboree games. Just super appreciative to have relationships with a lot of people in this area. And we just want these kids to know that, hey, they have a platform. We want to give them a spotlight. They work just as hard, same thing for the cheerleaders, as the high schools, and so they deserve recognition. And that's going to do it for me today on The Locker Room. I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that share button, and we'll see you right back here again next time on The Locker Room.